Record. What is up, freaking wing women? I am excited about what we're going to talk about tonight. Am I ever not excited? If I was not excited, I wouldn't tell you. I'm just kidding. I'm always excited about it because I am a super nerd. Um, and our good friend Chelsea has inspired this whole presentation just by asking about coming off of birth control, and I felt like I just didn't answer that whole question totally well. So now we're going to take, hopefully, fingers crossed, about 20 minutes to answer not just that question, but that question and more, and kind of take a little bit of a deeper dive into this stuff. Okay. So the female hormone framework, that's what we're talking about tonight. I'm going to share the presentation. Hopefully, I never remember how to do this, even though I do it once a week times like a half a year. Oh, there it is. Share. Hmm. Just share this. Cool. You guys should be seeing that. Let me just get a thumbs up or like a yes in the chat or something if you guys can see the presentation, just so I'm not going rogue here. Cool. We got all the thumbs up. I love it. So let's go into present mode. And hopefully I can still see my own notes here. Audience window. Love it. Cool. This is what we're talking about today. We have a bunch of endocrine glands here for those of you who know. I thought this was super fun. A little pancreas up here, pituitary gland, thyroid, adrenal glands, some ovaries. Don't you love it? It's pretty cool. They're just going to be making guest appearances throughout this presentation. So, what we're going to learn today, we're going to talk about how female hormones work in simplistic terms and how to support your body with movement, food, sleep, and habits through these cycles. What changes across your menstrual cycle, if you still have one, what changes and what's happening during perimenopause and menopause, and then what to know about birth control and hormone replacement therapy. So obviously a ton of information. I got it boiled down to about 16 slides, including the last two. So hopefully it's digestible and super duper valuable for you guys. So, whoa, I didn't know there was a video in this. This is your female reproductive system. Look at that. That's nice. So what we're not going to talk about tonight. This is not a cycle syncing class. I don't know if you saw one of my videos probably about like 2 months ago now. I don't believe in cycle syncing, like training with your cycle, eating with your cycle. And the reason why is because hormones provide context. Okay. The physiology that we're going to go over today, it explains patterns. It doesn't necessarily have to dictate behavior. And even if it does, every single woman's going to experience this cycle and these hormonal fluctuations in a different way. So it's really super important that you are only changing your behavior based on how you feel and what you're perceiving in your body and how you feel like you need to adjust things in order to take care of yourself best. And we're going to talk about how to kind of figure that out and what to do, or maybe some tips of what you can do if you're like, oh, yeah, that resonates with me. I do feel like that at certain times. And really, the key takeaway here, which I don't really touch on again, is like, I want you guys to know this baseline information so you can start paying attention and paying attention to how you're experiencing that in your own body so that you can make any changes or adjustments that you need to on a case by case basis. Okay. So, like I said, knowing yourself and how you feel throughout these phases should be the only thing that leads to your decision making, and everybody is going to be different. All right. Boom. The animation on this is unparalleled. This is a pituitary gland on this slide for no reason, just for fun. But this is the framework. then the basic framework that we're going to go over, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the same shit that Stevie's making us do all the time. This is all we're going to talk about today. Don't freak out. But also, yes, it is this simple. And yes, this is why we do this and do these things in this program. Okay. So hormones are information, not instructions. And we're going to support hormones by adjusting movement, nutrition, sleep, and habits. Crazy. I know it's not novel. And maybe you were expecting a little bit more, but we are going to talk about this at length because come to find out, these are the most important things in every single phase, whether it's regular menstruation, perimenopause, and menopause. Don't worry, I'm going to still give you some really good nuggets and takeaways that hopefully are new. But these are the bedrocks, guys. I'm just going to keep driving them downtown so that you guys understand. All right. So nothing we talk about changes these basic rules. What we are going to talk about is going to just give you some ideas of how to support your system and why we're supporting the system in the way that we already are and the way you're learning to in this program. So the four hormones that really matter the most when it comes down to energy and the way that most women start to feel in like their late 30s and beyond. Um, so I'm going to say these last two things at the end. So let's go over those four hormones that are the most important first. Estrogen. Estrogen is going to affect how your joints feel, how your body utilizes fuel or nutrition, and your mood. And progesterone can influence your mood as well, but it is going to be more so an influencer on your body temperature. It's going to have an influence on sleep and the recovery demands from your body. And cortisol is that stress hormone, right? So it's going to increase with stress, and stress is can be anything. Stress can be, you had a fight with your spouse or your significant other. That's stress. Work can be stress. Under eating, under fueling can be stress. Exercise is stress. So all of these different inputs can influence your cortisol. Increased cortisol can drive fatigue, can influence sleep disruption, and increase belly fat. All right. And we can have cortisol be high or low. And that's a whole different conversation for a whole different day. But basically, what you should know right now is when stress increases, cortisol increases. Okay. And then insulin affects your energy, fat storage, and is affected by nutrition, stress, sleep, and muscle mass, right? So all of this, you're like, all of this is really kind of influenced by all of those basic things, right? Nutrition, stress, sleep, movement, exercise, lifting. Yes, all of your hormones are affected by these things, which is why we do them and why I press this point over and over again. So female hormones influence these systems and influence how you feel, but they don't have to be limiting. And I really want you to kind of like take that cage off your brain because sometimes we're like, oh, I'm on my period. I can't XYZ. Like, just because we have these cycles and these fluctuations, we don't have to see them as limitations. We can just see them as, oh, I just need to support myself differently to get through this phase, to be able to be successful in this phase of either my cycle, this phase of my month, or this phase of my life. And we are going to learn how to give ourselves those inputs to support ourselves today in every single phase. So you don't need to micromanage your hormones per se, right? We just need to support the systems they influence. And we just learned that there's kind of four hormones here that kind of come from three different systems, right? We have the reproductive system here with progesterone and estrogen. We have the adrenal, like the pituitary, hypoadrenal, pituitary axis. So this is like your stress signaling. So that is one system for cortisol. And then your pancreas and your metabolic system here for insulin. We're going to learn how to support those. All right. So a normal menstrual cycle. We're going to start here because it's just we're going to start here because it's logical, right? So a normal menstrual cycle has two hormonal environments. A lower progesterone environment, and you can kind of see that over here on the right side of this little chart, follicular phase. So right here at the beginning of follicular phase, kind of all of your hormones are lower, right? You're like, oh, okay, that's nice. That's when you are bleeding. And progesterone remains low throughout the duration of follicular phase. And at the middle, like right here in the end of follicular phase, estrogen's going to peak, rise and peak. During this phase here, you often have better heat tolerance, which means your body's not going to get as warm, A, when you're sleeping, B, when you're working out, and you're going to have probably faster and better recovery in this phase. Many women feel more resilient in this phase. You might find maybe that you can lift heavier, recover better in this first kind of half of the month here. And then we have the second half, the luteal phase, higher progesterone environment. It's going to increase your core temperature. You might, like everything you do, might come at a slightly higher cost, and recovery might take longer. Many women notice sleep or recovery changes here. You might not feel as resilient in this phase, potentially. Some women feel this and some women don't, and both are normal. That's why, like, hey, if you feel good all of these days, then there's no reason to limit any of your activity or change anything you're doing. Or if you only feel bad, like for me, for example, and I think I've shared this with you guys, I only feel really bad on this middle day right here, right on ovulation when there's like multiple things high, estrogen is kind of high, progesterone's starting to rise. Like that's the only day, and I can tell if I end up working out this day I have to kind of curb it. And I don't track my cycle, which I probably should. I just like don't pay attention that much. But I promise you that if I do a high intensity day on ovulation day for me, I will feel it. I will know. And that's the only day I really need to support myself differently that I can tell. But you may be different. You might be like, no, this really like tried and true for me. I feel way better in this early part and I feel less resilient in this later part. Then we're going to talk about some options on how to support you through that. So we're going to talk about how to support yourself with all of the basics that we do. With movement, we're going to start with movement. So we want to, again, train based on how you're feeling that day, not necessarily your phase. You might find that you feel better or worse on certain phase days. And I want you to apply that to yourself. And now you can just understand, like, oh, this might be what is happening and this is what I need, right? So on green days, on days you feel good, you feel like you can push heavy and you're like able to do all the things and you're feeling good about it. Lift heavy. Lift heavy on these days. Make sure you're putting, if you're doing interval, high intensity intervals, if that's programmed for you, then like let's thumbs up those on green days. Go for it. On yellow days where you're like, oh, I'm just like not totally feeling like myself. I feel like I can't really like push as much weight as I used to. Like, right, my progressive overloads like plateaued or decreased. Sometimes this happens. Then let's just reduce the volume. Take a longer rest period instead of if you have programmed 2 minutes for rest, program 3. Take a little bit longer in between sets if you have time, or reduce the sets completely. Maybe we're just doing 2, right? So pay attention to your body and what it needs that day. And then on red days, when you get to the gym and you're just like, oh, to hell with it. If you start, like, I want you to always start because sometimes it's just a funk that you need to get through. But if you start and you're like, no, I'm just like not feeling it today, it's absolutely okay to like change the freaking plan. Either curtail your workout significantly or, hey, just be like, this is a zone 2 day for me. Now I'm just like jumping ship. I'm going to do a zone 2 day. I'm going to work on mobility. I'm going to prioritize recovery and sleep for myself on this day. And if you can find patterns in this with your cycles, then you can maybe start to predict this or understand yourself a little bit better and give yourself what you need on those days. All right. So if the same workout feels harder, then make the choice to support the body with one of these 2-tiered, like one of these 3-tiered systems. So I pulled a lot of inspiration on this report for from Dr. Stacy Sims, who I think she's like an exercise physiology PhD. I am a big fan of all of her work. You can follow her on Instagram. She has a lot of good stuff out. She also wrote a book called Roar. It's also excellent. And one thing she talks about a lot is that women don't suddenly lose strength when we're kind of going through these hormonal fluctuations, and or if our cortisol's high or our insulin's not working well. The first thing that we're going to notice is our tolerance is going to be lower for those same things, which I think is why this tiered system of green, yellow, red days is so good. So instead of necessarily changing what you're training or when, what you're training because of your cycle, we want to change how much you're asking from your system that day. Okay, so if you get there, like I said, and that same workout feels harder, then we're gonna just change what we're asking our system to perform that day. Now, supporting with nutrition. Nutrition is probably one of the bigger hormonal supports that we can like pull as a lever. Nutrition supports hormone signaling. Protein is going to anchor appetite and improve or increase or maintain that muscle mass. Carbs are going to support training and your nervous system. And fiber supports your gut health, digestion, and estrogen clearance. So you can actually be in a high estrogen state or a too high of an estrogen state. And when we have too much estrogen, then we get other problems like fibroids. And you can also have fatigue. It's like kind of some similar symptoms to low estrogen, but it's like a little bit more um, emotionally volatile and abdominal pain, like different things can happen if we have too much estrogen. So fiber is super important here too to keep those fluctuations in that normal cycle. And fiber is one that a lot of you guys miss a lot of times. Almost every time I'm going over your gut health tests with the nutritionist, she's like, "How's fiber for this person?" And I'm like, "Well, I can tell you." And I open up your macro stacks and I'm like, "This person had 5 grams of fiber yesterday." And we just are like, "Ooh." So it's like, right? Fiber is super important, very often missed. Make sure you're checking that on macro stacks. Our goal, I know your goal in macro stacks is going to be different, but we're really aiming for 30 grams or more every single day. It's super important. All right. So when stress or symptoms rise, we want to make a habit of doing this over and over. And you're going to see why when we get to menopause and perimenopause. Um, Front load protein earlier in the day. Shift carbohydrates closer to training and stop skipping meals to be disciplined. We want to be disciplined by feeding ourselves. Hormone symptoms often worsen from underfueling, and blood sugar instability can increase cortisol, premenstrual syndrome, and sleep disruption. And then that creates a vicious cycle because all of those things will also destabilize blood sugar. And we don't want to get caught in that. We need to stop it in its tracks by doing these things with all of these lifestyle modifications, especially nutrition. All right. A lot of hormone symptoms aren't fixed by supplements. They're fixed by eating enough earlier in the day and more consistently, especially protein and carbs when stress is high. All right. Supporting with sleep. Sleep regulates every hormone you care about. I promise you it does. Sleep is the bedrock of everything. Poor sleep is going to increase hunger hormones. You're going to feel more hungry. You're going to have more cravings. It's going to increase insulin resistance. So your blood sugar is going to be all over the place. Your stress hormones, same thing. They're going to be way higher if you're not sleeping. And your perceived effort is going to be much more. You are going to feel like you have to work harder to do the same things. Um, so supports, high impact supports for sleep. This is a good one. This is a big one, and this is a hard one. I have a really hard time with this one, but a consistent wake time set every single day, even on the weekends, even after bad sleep. If you wake up every single day, it's going to set that 24-hour circadian rhythm for you, and that's one of the best things you can do to support sleep. Carbohydrates at dinner, especially if you wake up hot at night. That could either be progesterone or it could be your blood sugar crashing while you're asleep. So if that's happening with you, I would have maybe a little bit carby at dinner before bed. Make your room cool and dark. Women's sleep is way more sensitive to blood sugar fluctuations and temperature in the room and stress as well. And all of these things are super common in perimenopause. So if sleep is fragile, we don't want to chase perfection in everything else that day or in like that week if you're having a hard sleep phase. We want to protect the rhythm and we want to protect our sleep, right? And this is kind of reiterating everything I said. Carbs at night if needed, same wake time every single day, warmer food earlier. That's an interesting one. So like the idea here is like don't eat like a hot bowl of soup before you go to bed, especially if you're already struggling with some like progesterone issues and you're hot at night already. That might not make you comfortable. So this is all just physiology, not weakness, and you can use some of these if you're struggling with some of the stuff that I said. All right, and habit support. Electrolytes support hydration, headaches, and training tolerance. And more electrolytes are often helpful later in the cycle in perimenopause or during high stress periods of your life. Creatine can support strength, recovery, stress, and cognitive resilience. Magnesium supports sleep depth, right? So we can have more deep sleep potentially with some magnesium supplementation and more muscle relaxation. So it's going to help you fall asleep and hopefully sleep a little bit deeper. Walking can lower your nervous system load, right? So that's going to help with some cortisol stuff, help with recovery, help with insulin sensitivity. And it can be especially helpful when sleep or recovery is compromised. That's why we're like, hey, on these red days, we're going to maybe downshift to like a zone 2 day or some walking and just get steps. These things aren't going to fix your hormones, but they might make your system easier to regulate. All right, perimenopause. What's happening in perimenopause? Estrogen and progesterone are fluctuating wildly and unpredictably. Stress hormone becomes more reactive, and recovery signals are less consistent. So things are basically all over the board. Your body is going through chaos. So what helps? Man, all of these same freaking things, Stevie. Yes, lifting heavy because we want to preserve muscle mass and bone despite these hormonal swings, especially estrogen has a lot to do with bone mineral density and bone deposition. So as estrogen declines, our bone mineral density tends to also decline with it. But if we can oppose that with lifting heavy and adequate protein, then we can maintain. Okay. And this adequate protein is going to do that same thing, protect lean mass and also stabilize your blood sugar, which is also going to be all fluctuant and all over the board during perimenopause. So we need more recovery in between, which is why I'm like, hey, we don't need to be working out 7 days a week, right? Some of you have 5 days a week of working out. Some of you have four. It just depends on the intensity I have you working at and how old you are. But more recovery is going to buffer your nervous system, decrease reactivity, and help with some of the stress response that you're just going to have at baseline when your hormones are all over the place. All right, we need simpler plans because our brains are already just going through this major shift with all of these different hormones. So we want to reduce cognitive and physiologic load. So we want to put this stuff on autopilot and make it as easy as we possibly can, right? The goal here is stability in an unstable system. All right, menopause. Now what's happening? Estrogen is low. It's consistently low. We're done with all these fluctuations. Muscle protein synthesis is less responsive, especially as we age. And as we age, we need 1% more protein per age over 40. So that's just true because our system's kind of more catabolic. We're breaking down more than we're kind of building up. So we need more inputs to build up than we used to. Insulin sensitivity is going to decline more easily. So we need to be on the lookout for diabetes. We need to be eating really well, really balanced, and we need to be moving and preserving that muscle mass to keep ourselves as insulin sensitive as possible. And sleep is going to become more fragile because that progesterone is just not supported unless we're doing HRT. All right, so what helps? The same freaking things. Lifting heavy. I'm not going to press the point here. Higher protein because of that anabolic resistance that I was telling you about. Insulin sensitivity, focus, right? Strength, keep that muscle mass high, somewhere to put all that free floating blood sugar. Daily movement, it's going to matter more and more as you age. Not less, but more. And sleep protection is going to prevent that stress hormone from driving fat gain and fatigue. The goal here is to protect structure, not just in your day, but structure in your body with giving it the protein and the inputs that it needs to maintain your metabolism, your bone mineral density, and your muscle mass. Okay. Birth control. This is a real trade-off. It really is. So Dr. Sarah Gottfried is another one that I pulled from a lot in this presentation, and she talks about birth control as a trade-off, not a problem, right? It's good that we have it because it literally prevents pregnancy when we do not want pregnancy to happen, right? And for some women, it can smooth out some hormonal chaos, especially when we're younger. But for others, it can quiet these like hormonal signals and it can lead to decreased motivation, decreased drive, decreased energy, and actually some weight gain. All right. So it's like we have this give and take. Some people it's more helpful for than others. It just depends because all of our bodies are kind of different. But it's like preventing pregnancy and it can help with some of these symptoms that might be overkill, right? And neither is wrong. We need to use it strategically. But the key to understanding this is like birth control changes how the brain, stress system, and metabolism communicate. So when we support those systems intentionally when we're on birth control, then you're going to probably do better, especially if you're someone who has more side effects with it. How can we do that? So we're going to have a higher nutrient demand when we're on birth control. We're going to have some altered stress resilience, and some women might notice the opposite. They might have steadier moods. They might have less hormonal noise, but some women might feel like they have more and might be a little bit more all over the place when it comes to mood. So how can we support ourselves on birth control? Prioritize strength training to protect muscles and confidence. Okay, that's number one. Eat enough protein and micronutrients. This is a big deal. So B vitamins, magnesium, and zinc can be depleted when you're on birth control. So supporting yourself with especially magnesium and B vitamins, super important. Zinc would be a conversation that would be more nuanced. Allow more recovery between hard efforts and listen to daily feedback from your body, not just what expectations you have for your body. All right. Birth control continued, and now we're coming off birth control. And I'm going to breeze through this a little bit more. I didn't change 1, 2, and 3 over here, so ignore that. That's just from the previous slide. But coming off birth control, when you come off birth control, your body basically has to like relearn how to ovulate because that's what it's suppressing, right? That's what birth control is suppressing. No egg can come out, then no egg can be fertilized, no pregnancy can happen. So we have to relearn how to ovulate. You're going to have to like expect irregular cycles, mood shifts, or energy changes when you're coming off of it. This doesn't mean that anything is wrong. It just means like your system's rebooting. It's trying to figure it out again. Okay. The best support here is again, the same freaking things. This is hormonal support. These daily habits, these lifestyle changes are the secret sauce. It really is. The secret is there is no secret, right? It's just doing the stuff that you know you need to do. Food, training, sleep, and not constantly tweaking or like changing what you're trying to do. Consistent effort in the right direction. All right, HRT, we're almost done here, guys. I think there's like a couple more slides. So HRT or hormone replacement therapy in perimenopause and menopause, this is going to be an individualized medical decision. Okay, it can support your symptoms and your quality of life. It is going to improve your body's functionality in every single body system. I am a huge advocate for this. I do think that if you are not someone who's on the list of like probably shouldn't have it or should be a conversation with your doctor, that list is pretty short. Be like hormone positive, breast cancers or ovarian cancers, those people need to have a conversation with their doctor. Um, Clotting disorders probably have to have a conversation with their doctor, like a few things that you might need to be aware of if you're like, hey, maybe I'm a person who shouldn't do this or should have a joint shared decision making conversation with my doctor before I'm taking it for like risks, benefits, and alternatives. Like, is this going to help me or is this going to put me more at risk for these other things? That's super important to do. It's super important to find a doctor who can have that conversation with you because there are a bunch out there who cannot. So if you find that your doctor is one that cannot have that conversation with you, there's absolutely no shame in going online and like just type in like menopause approved doctors. Like this is actually a thing. And everybody who is like menopause society trained is going to pop up in your area. Find someone who knows what they're doing, who knows how to have these conversations with you. Okay. Hormone therapy can be incredibly helpful, but it does not replace the basics that we just talked about. You must have both. You absolutely must have both. It cannot replace protein. It cannot replace lifting heavy. It cannot replace sleep. It can help your body utilize all these things. It can help your body sleep better, but it cannot do the job of those things for you. Okay. So HRT works best when it enters into a supported system that's already being taken care of with all of these other things. So don't expect HRT to prevent muscle mass loss alone, even though it can, but it's not going to probably be significant enough for you to notice. You're going to need to keep that training intensity appropriate. You can't decrease your training load because you're on estrogen now or because you're on testosterone now. Okay. So that's the big takeaway for HRT. And then we can get more into HRT if anyone is curious at a later time. But hormones, this is important. They change the environment, but they cannot change what the fundamentals do. So you still need to do all of those basic things. All right. So big takeaways, hormones change. The framework doesn't. The things you guys are doing are the things you need to keep doing for the rest of your lives. All right. And then, yeah, we talked about it. Framework's the same throughout the life cycle of the woman, no matter where you're at. And all of that stuff, sleep, nutrition, movement, habits are going to support you no matter what. Cool. Does anyone have any questions? I know I went way over again. Everyone's still here though. Love that. Sorry guys. 6:05. That's not bad. Let's see here. Awesome info. Love it. Okay. If there's no questions, then we will get out of here. If you do have questions later, drop them in the comments box to the replay. I'll post it tomorrow. And don't forget, your check-ins are going to come out tomorrow morning. If you're watching the replay, they're there now. So get in there. Don't forget to do them. And I will touch base with every single one of you on Thursday. Good night.